Good morning. So it's May days, continuing with some of my favorite games. These are, again, not all of my favorite games. These games don't mean that it's a slight to other games. And favorite games means games that I have played in and run. It's difficult for me to put, let's say, 2D20 Star Trek Adventures, 2D20 Conan on this list when all I did was play them, and it was a few sessions. I had a pretty good um, pretty good qualification in 2D20 in that we played about 13 sessions of 2D20 Star Trek. So I can speak to that, fairly well as a player. I thought it did exactly what it was designed to do. I felt like Star Trek. It felt like we could have played Star Trek infinitely with that game in all different eras, I think, of that Star Trek. It did feel more to me like Next Generation than, say, a TOS, but that's getting off track. That's not what this video is about. It's about my favorites, and generally, these are going to be a list of games that I have experienced in the last 6 to 8 years, and games that I have played in and run. Generally, I purchase them to support somebody, and then I'll GM them. I'll read the book, and then if I'll GM my group, or I'll GM somebody online, and then hopefully I have an opportunity to play. So some of these again, are going to be things that I've experienced as both a player and a GM, and I can speak to them being favorites because of that. Not all of them. And of course, this isn't all of my favorite games. And these lists these observations are only meant to share, what I dig and what I think is unique and what I like and what is a favorite experience. Okay. Robert the Narrator's Piece, the basic edition. I bought 2 of these. Because one I use for me for prep, and I've worked the binding like hell, and also at the table that becomes the player's book, so they don't have to worry about opening it and bending it and the binding. And then I keep one for me. This is the copy that is ultimately here on the bookshelf. I don't use, but I purchased this first because I had a chance to play test it, so I knew what I was getting into. I knew what Robert's work was about. And I enjoyed that play test, and I enjoyed what Robert was doing when we play tested it. So when it became available, a matter of fact, I think I asked him if I could purchase it before it was actually readily available. I think he had to have it made and then sent me 2 copies. But I purchased them. I wanted to support Robert, and because I thought the book was worth it. Hardback, well done, color, images, maps. I love this game. He gives an idea on the back of what you get in the basic book versus what you would get in the full stuff, right? Robert the Narrator, he has a YouTube channel, Confessions of a Frustrated GM, which I think we all can relate to, right? That's Robert. Okay. And I gotta say, that experience was good enough that I knew I was going to get whatever was available when it was available. And I like to have hard copies of things because I want to take them over and play them with my groups, and I like to have a book they can sit with and look at. And so I'd already had a taste, so I knew what I was getting. When I got it, it was everything that Robert had presented, everything Robert promised. And then we had over the last few years, it was one of the funnest experiences online actual play that I've had. Robert ran us in a short, I think a 3-session series of games, Chronicles, and it was fantastic. And it was one of the best experiences I was able to have. I would say that year with Dell and David as characters on those adventures. And then I turned around and GM'd, tried my hand at it. I do prefer that I have a chance to play with authors, depending on the game, obviously, especially if it's a game, in my opinion, that is nuanced and as unique as Robert's. It's kind of nice to play with somebody who either knows it really well or somebody who has written it, because I want to make sure I understand how to present the game's intent. Because we had this conversation in Discord this morning, I believe we all tend to, for the most part, we read it, we comprehend it, but we don't maybe always get the subtle nuances of how we should portray a skill check, etc. And I think this is important. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It doesn't make the game broken or not broken. Great game. The thing I love the most about this is we build our character, we assign basically a level to our attributes. Those attributes govern things like magic, warfare, or social. And the more I put into social gives me more dice to roll when we're doing a social challenge or something that I would do, like try to intimidate goblins or try to kill goblins or try to use magic on goblins. And that that attribute and those number of dice are used to accrue points. Those points then, which is part of what I love about this. So people say, dude, I don't like a game where I can't just, this is what makes it so great. I might roll 7 points with 3. Let's say I have 3 dice 6 warfare, and I'm in a fight with a giant beast. And I roll you know, a 2, a 2, and a 1. I got 5 AP, 5 action points on this turn to spend, and I'm looking at my abilities, and I'm trying to decide what I wanted to do was warfare, but I can't control what may occur. That to me represents the dynamics of what we can and cannot control in a fight, in a social encounter. Sometimes I get the upper hand. I'm boxing, I'm coming underneath, and I feign a right, and it opens him wide open for my left hook, right? Sometimes I feign that right, he doesn't bite, right? This is the reality of the dynamism of conflict. Sometimes you get the upper hand in an argument, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you win, get an upper hand in a sword fight, sometimes you don't. And I loved that, but I also loved that we had to play it tactically. Man, I only got 5 AP. This is this creature. I'm going to have to defend myself. I'm going to have to use this defense skill on this turn just to try to absorb any punishment this creature is going to put on my ass, right? And it really did make the experience that much more interesting to me than just a static 4th edition. I'm going to use my spinning blades and roll my d20 plus my strength plus my to hit bonus to breach their armor class of 17. Oh, now I get to do my 1 die 10 damage. That's fine. It works. I've been doing it for 40 years. This really added a whole flavor piece. And the other thing I love and appreciate about what games like this is he provides the world. The world building. Although in this book, of course, you get the basic flavors so you can get rolling. He also provides more information for deeper delves into his world building. But I appreciate a game that says, listen, here's what you're doing. You're doing high fantasy in this world. This is who the elves are. This is who the ogres are. This is who the humans are. This is the world. This is what the world's about. And you read it and you create a character, and you should be informed by what the book implies about your elf and the culture your elf comes from. And we go, man, and we have to be characterizations from those cultures. I mean, I can still be a greedy elf, but ultimately I'm going to have background. I'm going to have baggage from my culture, right? I may despise humans if that's what the book says, right? If the book implies we do, that doesn't mean my elf has to always despise humans, right? But it just adds an element to your character gen and to the world we're going to play, et cetera, et cetera. And it is well designed. It's fantastic. And I can't recommend enough that people try out this. And this is true of even, you know, whether you're in an encounter to trying to intimidate somebody, you're going to use you're going to use your, in a way, your social attribute, and you're going to generate points to utilize a particular trait, right? It's very cool. It's very, very cool. Again, why 2? Because I wanted to support her, but also because when I like a game or I love a game, I generally buy 2, and I'll use 1 for me and 1 for my table, or one goes in safety storage, because I don't know if they'll ever be in print again. I don't know if I'll ever be able to get that copy again in print, you know, as things change. It's like tennis shoes, man. Buy your favorite. If you get a favorite pair of tennis, you better turn around and go back and get some more, because they're not going to keep making that version of those tennis shoes, right? So I love Peace. And also I generally will gift one sometimes, right? So I you know, Peace, my intention was to make sure they had a table copy and I had a copy. But very often I then turn around and gift one to somebody I think would want to run it or enjoy it, right? I'm going to cover more in this video because I don't want to do this I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be available, you know, to finish all of May Days. The other one, again, it's really, I think, the work, but the other one I purchased, again, I have 2. I have 1 I keep in plastic in storage. I've never opened, I don't use, and I purchased 2 at the time, and that is Romance of the Perilous Lands. There's a couple of reasons I wanted this. One, Scott Malthouse's work. I only know Scott's work from his free 1-page RPGs, which to be quite frank with you, changed how I GM, and it changed forever the type of experience that I consider, for me, the quintessential experience as a GM. And those experiences alone inspired me and Dell to make Dark Age of Man. Okay, So that's how much I liked his one-page free RPGs, In Darkest Warrens and Astounding Interplanetary Adventures, which is basically In Darkest Warrens science fiction. Okay, and you can find those as free PDF downloads, one page, print them off, or just use them on your iPad or whatever, your phone. It's D6. All you need is one D6 and a scrap of paper, and you're going, right. But those experiences were so watershed for me as a GM first, because I didn't play. I was experimenting on a style of GMing and a way I wanted to present a table in which I didn't drive the players drove themselves, and my goal was to create conflict and dilemma and to feature the direction they were going. And I don't mean open sandbox, open world. I mean quite literally being naive and allowing them to prioritize what to them is the conflict they want to deal with or the direction they want to go, etc. And I know that's, for many people, it's very unnerving or terrifying for a GM. GMs are usually pretty much administrators. We're pretty much, I don't want to say control freaks, but we like to be in charge. We like to do a thing away, right? Okay. But there was a couple of reasons why I snatched this, and I definitely wanted this book, and I knew I was going to buy one and put it in plastic for two reasons. One, this and Paleolithic were Osprey Games' first role-playing games, right? The Osprey brand said, we're making Osprey games, and these were the debut games. This might have even come out before Paleolithic, but I think they both came out pretty much right on top of each other. Paleolithic was one I wanted to get, and I just didn't, because I also didn't think I would be able to get anyone to play a, Dawn of Man style of caveman style game, right? To some degree, again, Paleolithic. And there's a couple other reasons. One, it features British folklore all in one amalgamation. And again, I've said it before, I'm an Anglophile. I love everything British. I love British history, British literature, British television, and a British mythology, so to speak. And so I love the subject matter. And I love the fact that it was a little more advanced version of the D20 hack, meaning you roll under to hit and you roll under for your attribute checks, etc., etc. I love this game. And I ran one, I think, locally here before we got sidetracked with something else. I've run 4 sessions apiece locally. We had just 2 players playing Ogre Brothers, and they were, I think at some point, I may even have a recap of the first session or second session on here on this channel. But we ended up playing 2 more sessions of that as well. And this, I think I ran 1 locally, and I was able to run 1 for Todd and Dell and the guys, God, before my year break, before we started Dark Age of Man. When we started writing Dark Age of Man, gaming pretty much, became kind of a tight window for us, right? When we were working, and then I had other issues. I had to take basically a year away. But this is a game I will get back to, and I wish now I had been thinking about this when Brian invited, when COVID ended and we got together, we started getting together again locally more regularly, and we were discussing what next. I wish I had been thinking about this when we decided on something. I would like to be playing this maybe instead of a traditional sandbox white box, but I love old school white box, so I'm not losing, but it would have been nice to enjoy this more. The other one I'll talk about in this video and is Low Fantasy Gaming. Again, I purchased 2 of these. I can't remember if I got these from Lulu, but I bought 2 of these, including the support campaign book for it, the Midlands campaign book, which is a pretty hefty tome of the world and the cultures and the equipment and the maps and the stuff, and it's pretty sweet. So you ask, why did I snatch Low Fantasy Gaming? Why did I buy it at the time? Number one, it is a modern D20 couched in what this particular author considers low fantasy gaming, low fantasy high adventure, which for me was going to be how I presented Conan, or just play the Midlands, but with a Conan style of high adventure to my local group. And of course, my local group, Steve Harold and myself, Robert, that group slowly evolved, right? When Robert moved away, then Brian joined us. Brian, having Pathfinder was his thing, modern D20 Pathfinder, and now, of course, D&D 5th edition is what Brian and his crew do. Steve and Harold and I were all old guys that were sticking to OSRs for the most part, and we would try other games like well, we try all kinds of things. Like if I could convince Harold for sure to just try it. One session, dude, just try it. Harold was the one who fought basically anything other than old D&D or an OSR that was strictly OD&D. But he would. I mean, he was a good sport a bit, right? And of course, when Harold when Harold passed away, Steve moved to Texas, and Brian invited his wife and Phil and now Josh, their friend. And that's our group now. So it's a younger group of guys, right? I think I'm the oldest. And of course, they're in their mid-30s. I think Brian might be closing in on 40. I don't know exactly. Anyway, and so of course they have an affinity for the modern Pathfinder 1 edition, and of course now D&D 5th edition. They have a real affinity for it. And this was a way to invite them to try something not quite 5th edition, not quite Pathfinder. And it had some very cool features in that. How do you turn the old D20? How do you turn D20 into high adventure? Well, there's some actual mechanics of intent in this book that make them heroes, give them these high adventure options, right? Plus, there's a luck mechanic, which is fantastic. And you can spin those luck points, similar to, I guess, bennies in Sword and Wizardry. But what's very cool about this is you have these heroic moments. So it happens all the time in D&D, right? We're playing old school Holmes, and they're in a tavern that's on fire, and one of the characters is on the top level, and the place is burning, and he says, I want to leap to the chandelier, grab it, and swing across. And as I do, I want to cut the head off that last goblin on my feet on my way out the door. And we all go, oh, that's badass. But how do we do that in old school D20 without basically just throwing the rules out the window for a minute, right? And no GM, if you're like me, I don't like to say no to the players, but I like to adhere to the rules. Well, a game like this has those heroic chances, and you basically narrate some badass shit like that, but then you have to make the roll, basically. And if you make the roll, you're good to go. If you don't make the roll, well, it doesn't quite go the way you want it to go, so to speak. And so that, to me, allows us to play low fantasy, meaning low magic. For me, Conan-esque, right? And we have that high adventure ability, and you've got a lot. You got barbarians and druids, and I think you have magic users, and you have fighters, and you have the bard, and you have the barbarian. So also all of your classes seem to fit a particular style of fantasy, right? You're not going to see a necromancer, for instance. Let's see here. For instance, we have the rogue, we have the magic user, we have the bard, we have the barbarian, right? And so they all kind of fit the sense of high adventure. Matter of fact, speak of the devil, boom, Conan. So clearly he wanted this to be in the frame of Conan high adventure. And I love it. I love this book. I just gifted, I bought 2 copies. I just gifted David. I just sent him some books, and I gifted him my other copy of this, because the reality is I think David would get a kick out of this. I think David would like it. And I'm hoping to run this at some point in the future. And David might want to reciprocate and run something, right? And then, of course, because I wanted all the depth and detail that might provide, I wanted the Midlands for it, right? Awesome books. So those are three of my Maydays favorites, and I call them modern because I've discovered them in the last 6 to 8 years, and because they are ultimately, they're not harkening back to 1981 Traveler or D&D Holmes. Those are favorites too, but that's a whole different thing. And most of these aren't traditional OSRs. However, I do believe, obviously, Romance of the Perilous Lands uses the OGL, I believe, is in this. Yes. So how do we know that it is, for the most part, an OSR? I believe the OGL is in here. I don't have my glasses on. That tells us what we're dealing with here, right? When I see the OGL, I know I'm pretty much dealing with a version of the D20. Yeah, here it is. Made by, distributed with a license made by Wizards of the Coast. So the OGL license is in here, 1A, I think it is. So we know that this is I don't say it's a bastardization of the D20 in the mold of a hack, but with a lot more depth, right? In my opinion, you can bring all the depth you want. I know, but I mean, quite literally. Matter of fact, I think they're characters. From our first, we played, I think, 1 or 2 sessions of this. I think their characters are in here. Yeah, Elowin, a bard. This was Katie's character. Tomas of the Iron Hawk. This is Phil's character. Sylvia of Listennoise is Brian's character, Sylvia, so he's playing a female. I forgot that. Simon is Josh's character. There you go. Phil had not joined us when we did this one. What's the date on these? Well, they're not dated. But anyway, so their characters are even jammed in this book here, right? So love it. So these are my favorites, and I'm trying to qualify what I mean in these May Days videos, right? I have a lot, but some of them I won't talk about, or I won't classify because I haven't had a chance to GM them, or I only had 1 or 2 sessions and it wasn't enough for me to decide. Sometimes I can buy a book and know immediately, because when I read the rules, I can extrapolate whether this is going to jive for what I'm about or what I want to achieve at a table, right? Would I recommend this for all of your gaming? Of course not, but I would definitely turn to this for my version of Conan, right? Even though I wouldn't play the IP Conan, it would be that Conan-esque game, right? Anyway, wanted to share these. These are the continuations. I would put Scott Malthouse 2 one-page games on this list too. IDW, which I only played a couple times, and I did that as a Conan IP. I actually did that with the Conan IP that I used for some of my 2D20 Conan books. I used those books for the references to the Conan literature and IP for that session. But AIA, those experiences in Del and I's games with Donnie and Del and I, quite literally, changed what we think and how we think about doing this thing. And it's so great was the effect that it inspired us to try to put it into words, try to quantify it, and then of course put that to our own setting and our own basic rule set, which is Dark Age of Man. So anyway, there you have it. That's and I won't do it. I won't make the video May Days, my favorite games, Dark Age of Man, because that's that's a little bit self-indulgent. But yes, if you ask, Dark Age of Man, of course, would be on my May Days list, but I don't need to cover it necessarily. So those dark places is quickly. I mean, it's like it's grabbed hold of the bottom rung of this ladder. Just as a GM, that first session, it's already grabbed hold with its right hand of the bottom ladder, and now reaching with its left, either for an opportunity to be a player in some sessions or an opportunity to GM another session. Those dark places might actually start pulling bastards off the ladder as it climbs and relegates these other games to life or death on my ladder of modern favorite experiences. I should probably call these experiences, not just games. But anyway, thank you for watching. Again, I wanted to do a little something special for May, and I thought it'd be fun just to talk about some of my favorite stuff. So everybody out there, have a great weekend, right? It's Saturday. I got to go out and finish mowing the lawn. I did the back. I got to do the front. So I got to go finish that before it turns into 80 degrees here. All right. Bye-bye.